Hello everyone and welcome to session 6 of Q&A here at Dance School Startup. I hope you're all well, having a great week. I was on a 3-hour CPD course at 8 o'clock this morning, so it's been a bit of a hectic day, but I wanted to get this out for you this evening, so let's get going with this week's questions. So question number 1 today, do people use any syllabus ideas for inspiration for toddler and parent classes? If so, any recommendations? This was a future plan of mine, but mums are really keen to do it now. Well, there are an abundance of options on the market when it comes to a parent and toddler class syllabus, including franchises and class in a box sets. A quick Google will bring you up a list that are worldwide, and there are lots of great options. I actually bought into Melody Bear many years ago when it first came out on the market, and this has really expanded since I was using it, and I really liked it. And it came with specially created music and songs, and everything was centered around the bear. And if you don't feel you want to spend time creating a full program, then something like this could definitely be for you. There is, of course, always the option to create your own, which will save you a lot of money in the long run, but it takes a lot of time to design it and create it and plan it all out. And preschool programs are huge revenue streams if done correctly. So this one definitely deserves a bit of time and a proper plan. So don't rush into anything. You'd rather start it when you're ready and see great retention rates, then make it up as you go along and then get a mediocre result. So get Googling, find out what inspires you, and then go from there. Question number 2, how do you stay on top of trends for TikTok or Instagram Reels? And how do you know what hashtags to use? More Instagram main posts related. I'm only really starting to take it seriously and have no idea how to be relevant instead of just posting whatever I want that doesn't seem to go anywhere. So, as I've said before, I'm a great dance school business owner, but social media is not my speciality. However, I do have bits to pass on that I have learned and picked up along the way over the years through various trial and error on my own socials, plus obviously learning through some of these big Instagram experts as I've gone along. So I just wanted to run through a few things with you tonight. So first of all, choose 1 or 2 socials and do them well. Don't try to be everything and everywhere, because you're going to burn out and then you won't do any of it well. So for a dance school, I really just recommend Facebook and Instagram. It's more than enough. Number 2, Reels are essentially Instagram's version of TikTok, and they're proving really popular at the moment. So there's no need to do both if you don't want to. You don't have to have a presence on TikTok and Instagram if you're happy just to use Reels. When it comes to hashtags though, so you can have up to 30 hashtags in a post, and I've heard experts say not to use 30, and I've heard some say go for the lot. I would personally spend some time looking at hashtags that are suitable for you and make a list of them so you can just cut or paste them into each post with ease. Hashtags can either be put at the end of your post, like the content of the post, or obviously in the first comments if you don't want your post to have the hashtags in it. But be warned though, because apparently if you're posting them as the first comment, you have to post within 10 seconds for Instagram to recognise that they're attached to your content. So I just chuck them in at the end of the post for less faff, and I just put a few blank rows before them so it separates them. You can also put hashtags in your stories and either hide them under an image or an icon, or you can use the text colour picker to change the text colour and then just blend it into the background so it's not seen. Hashtags are essentially just keywords that relate to your topic and your location. So go to your desktop version of Instagram, which is instagram.com, and do a search with hashtag and then your area to get some ideas of what people are currently using. See what you can jump on. You want to use a hashtag that's around a 10,000 mark for specific things like dance community, that kind of thing. If there's around 10,000 people using that hashtag, that's apparently a lot better than if you use a hashtag that's say got 100, 200,000 people on it. You're not going to get seen. And use plenty of location-based hashtags too, because these will be much more smaller in who's looking at them, but people looking in your area will see those posts. So it's a much more specific target. So there's a few things to think about with hashtags in particular. And as I say, just make sure that you have a plan for Instagram and Facebook and be consistent with it, and you will see results. It takes time and patience, but if you've made that decision that you want to go forward and spend a little bit more time on that and be a bit more committed to it, then there are some tips I would say for using hashtags and looking at how you can improve your Instagram. Okay, question number 3. I've got a parent that's so anxious that she can't be in class watching her 4-year-old, but that age is our no parent policy. She's so anxious and says she's feeling sick having her out of her sight. Any tips? I don't want the energy and the anxiety to channel down to her daughter. Well, look, I think it's fair to say, look, we've all been there. And the key here with this type of parent is to be supportive and stand your ground. Because as with any rules, these are your rules, and you don't want to have a parent that you give into at every hurdle, because wanting to stay in the room with her 4-year-old will become wanting her 10-year-old to do an exam, even though you said she's not ready to do it. So sticking to your guns is so important if you believe in your rules. And the conversation may feel difficult, but you must be seen from day one as reasonable but consistent with your rules and regulations. Sit down before you talk to her with a pen and paper and get very clear in your own mind why you don't allow parents in at that age. Get specific with your reasoning. See, to us as dance teachers, it's obvious why we don't do it, but to an anxious mum, she doesn't get why she can't just stay in there. So explain with your own clarity and peace of mind that you're happy with your choices, and then create a solution for her. So come to her with a solution. Invite her to stay on site so you can get her if there are any problems. She can even stand outside the door for the first week. Think outside the box. I mean, there may be a deeper rooted reason here as to why she feels, that you might not be aware of, why she feels that way. So be kind, but be strong. And if she still doesn't go for it after you've been as accommodating as possible, you may have to let her go, but keep her on a subscription list and reach out to her in 6 months when the child is a little bit older. But in the first step, go to her with a solution straight away and see if you can make that work, that compromise. Okay, so next up we have a few questions that I've put together because they kind of tie in quite nicely. So the first one is, for the first ever class, would you suggest it's free? Concerned that due to limited numbers, people may come and go and not be committed. Could I do paid trials with a free class after a month and then a thank you for joining? Am I overthinking this? Well, this is a really personal choice. For me, I offer a 2-week trial period and they pay on the door for those 2 weeks, and then at the end, if they want to sign up properly, then I invoice them for the remainder of the half term that we're in. I don't offer free trials, and that's because my experience tells me that when it's been free, it's not been as valued and people regularly didn't turn up. So I charge full price, if I'm honest. But there's nothing to stop you offering an introductory price if you felt like that was something you wanted to do to get yourself started. But I don't encourage completely free trials. I think that some form of payment equals some form of commitment to attending. So I would say consider that. And so, like you said here about could you do paid trials and then offer a free class after a month if they do sign up? See, something like that would get them through the door and you'd get a little bit more commitment out of them. So think outside the box with it, but ultimately I just think free trials that are completely free, no strings attached, there is room for people to not turn up and not commit to you. So think about that. The next one is any tips on streamlining sign-ups during a trial day? Do you get them to sign up on the day or let them go away and think about it? Now, for me, signing up people on trial days can be tricky because I'm really, really busy, and it can get quite busy and it can get quite hectic. And if you can't give the prospective clients the time and attention that you want to give them, you need alternatives. So you have two options. You can either have someone you really trust, who you've really properly briefed beforehand, is there on the day talking to the students and their parents as they leave, getting feedback, explaining what the next steps are. Or you can make a phone call to them the next day and have your feedback and sign up conversation there. And both are effective. It's just finding what works for you. You just want to make sure, if you want to do it on the day, but you're teaching and you can't do it personally, you find someone who has the energy and the personality that matches your brand, because you want to make sure that their trial experience is good from start to finish. You don't want it to end with a really flat conversation with someone that isn't perhaps completely clued up about what's next and perhaps hasn't got the energy that's needed to keep that momentum going. I can't dedicate time to a new student straight away, and I like to do it myself. So I tend to make the call the next day. So there's two choices there on what you want to do. If you're a slightly smaller school at the moment and you aren't teaching afterwards, or you have a gap in between or a break in between, then you can go out and have your conversation. But if you had 5 people starting, it's not necessarily going to be easy to go around to those 5 people and have those individual conversations and give them that personal touch. So I would say the phone call works better for me, but have a think about both options. So the next question is about charging a registration fee when children first join. And it says here, look, seen mixed views on this and schools doing it different ways. Some do it when children join, some do it yearly. So, just looking at a bit of information on that. And I think registration fees are very much personal choice. But if you are going to charge one, then consider carefully what you're charging for. Like, for example, is it just a fee towards your admin time, setting them up, putting them on the system? Or do you factor in something like a free t-shirt or some other incentive like one free class pass? I've never charged one myself. I've just not found it necessary. But I think as long as you can justify what it's covering and be transparent about that with the client, then if you want to go ahead and charge a registration fee and it's important to you and your business model, then go for it. Now, with the last question in this, it's terms and conditions. Terms and conditions for booking classes. Should it be monthly, half-termly? What about non-attendance? Will they lose their place? Should uniform be needed within a time scale? And it says here, I've read examples that are so strict, I'm not sure what's reasonable. Any tips? So, it's very subjective whether a set of terms and conditions are strict or not, because ultimately it's a set of your beliefs in what's acceptable to you and your school, not what's reasonable to others. Some people give a client 2 weeks to pay an invoice, others give 2 days. Some charge a late fee payment or a percentage of their bill if it's late, and some just let it go. Some people carry over missed lessons to the next invoice or next half term, and some just say it's non-refundable unless perhaps it's an extreme situation like a broken leg or an emergency. Some people say uniforms required by the first lesson, and other people say, uniforms not compulsory. The answer to these questions lie in what type of school are you building. Be clear on that and you're going to have all your answers. All right, that's the most important thing. If you know the type of school you're building, you will have all of these answers. My rules are uniform by the second week, no refunds for missed classes, they pay in full, half-termly, must be paid before the first lesson they attend, and if it's late, I charge them a £5 fee, which they have to pay with their late fees. That's what works for me personally. But if you know what type of school you're building, you're going to know whether uniform is important to you and whether it needs to be compulsory and worn by the first or second lesson. You're going to know about whether you're invoicing monthly, half-termly. You're going to know whether it's important to you that a child is committed and comes every week and therefore it's non-refundable, or if you're happy with a more pay-as-you-go option or a little bit more flexibility. So sit down and ask those questions and you will get all your answers. Okay, next question. In terms of documents, what would you say are the must-haves for opening your doors? So the list really, I mean, there's so much that you can include, but the must-haves I would say are obviously your DBS, first aid training, public liability insurance, the music licence, which is PRS and PPL have now combined and can join together. Now, with the music licence, just call them and have a conversation. Okay, you can read the website as much as you like, but it is just so confusing. And I've had conversations with people at the music licence, and by the end of it I've got them down about 500 quid because they just make it up as they go along. I mean, when it all changed to a joint licence of PRS and PPL in the big dance teacher hub type groups, there were just threads and threads and threads of people saying, oh my god, it's tripled, you know, and they just didn't understand you know, what we did and how it all worked. And obviously some of our music, if you use syllabus, some of it is royalty free, so you don't have to pay for that. And also it depends on your venue, because in some venues obviously there are parts that you won't have to pay for because they've already done it. So the most important thing to do is just call them and explain and speak to someone and get their name and go back to them and make sure you speak to the same person, because it's a big corporation and there's loads of room for error. So have a conversation. So that's the music license. Your terms and conditions, which we just spoke about, obviously you need to sit down and work those out. Very important that everyone's clear, you particularly. And then I would say safeguarding policy for children and adults if you're teaching adults as well. Child protection policy, health and safety policy, and a risk assessment for the venues that you use. They, I would say, are your must-haves for opening your doors. Okay, next question. I would just love some suggestions for discounts when students do more classes. My maths is shocking, so the simpler the better. Me too. Okay, best advice. Keep it easy. Keep it easy is the best advice for you, for your bookkeeper, for your software, and for your parents. Don't overcomplicate things. Don't offer 4 different versions. Go for a basic multi-class discount. You can add a sibling discount if you want to, but if I'm honest, I think a multi-class discount is more than enough. Be clear when detailing it and make sure everyone is aware of the structure, so there's no room for error. Everyone knows what's happening. Mine, if you want to know, is obviously 1 class is full price, 2 classes a week they get 5% discount, 3 classes a week they get an 8% discount, 4 classes a week they get a 10% discount, 5 or more they get a 12% discount. All right, so that's what I do. Now, when I first started, I had a ridiculous structure, and they got something like 15% off for 3 or more classes. I don't know what I was thinking. Don't do that. All right, just sit down and really think about this, guys, because once you've committed to it, it's quite difficult to change it, and it takes a lot of courage, because it took me years. And you'll also cry when you realise how much money you've lost. So just be very careful. Make sure that you are really happy with the structure that you've created before you go ahead and commit to it. But as I say, mine is very straightforward and I've not had any problems, and it works really, really well, and I think it's reasonable. So something like that would be absolutely perfect. Have a think from there. Okay, question number 6. Would you be able to share the best way for keeping in touch with parents? Should I be emailing and texting, WhatsApp groups, social media, newsletters, etc.? Keep it simple and keep it consistent. Email and social media are always going to be your main 2. Yeah, I'm not a fan of WhatsApp groups, I'm going to be honest. Some people are. For me personally, I find they get really busy, really cluttered. The information just gets lost in the stream of stuff, and then people end up putting the group on mute because some parents want to have a chat on there. We've got one for our teen kids. I wouldn't have one with the parents personally. They've got their own one and that's fine, but I don't think my mental health will cope with being in a WhatsApp group with a whole load of parents. Trust me. Same with Facebook groups, guys. It's my personal opinion, but I think they're a breeding ground for drama. I mean, just think about how many posts and comments are in our group each and every day. And then imagine that being a parent group, and then one parent asks a question, and then 6 other parents give an answer, and none of them are accurate. And then you're going to waste all your time having to undo all that misinformation. Nightmare. Be in full control of your communication methods. Just create a system that is sustainable for you and is reliable for them, and then that will be absolutely fantastic. That is just the key. Not having thousands of different streams. If you just have 1 or 2 in addition to your email, then that's sustainable and that's reliable. So I've got 2 questions next that kind of are linked together about uniform. So let's have a look at these back to back. So thoughts on how to implement uniform. We've finally designed ours. We're running a competition to try and create a buzz, which is going okay, but finding it hard on how we can go about encouraging parents to buy it, and how do we first introduce it, and if so, do we make it mandatory? Okay. And then the second question is, does anyone have any tips on how to sell the uniform? Can you make a uniform order page on Wix? I currently have an order form with uniform listed and parents just tell me what they want, but I thought it might be easier to do it from a website. Right, okay. You need to ask yourself the question, is uniform important to you? Is it important to your business? Is it important to your brand? Do you want a school where everyone looks the same and is matching and has a professional uniform that they wear to every class? Or are you relaxed and you're happy for your students to wear anything they feel comfortable in as long as it's safe and appropriate? Once you've decided, then you have your answer. All right. If uniform is important to you, make it compulsory. And then decide, is it important to you that they have the full kit? Yeah, because you might decide that that is a real important thing. You want it full out, all right? Or perhaps you decide it is important to me and it is compulsory, but there's a bare minimum. So like they have to buy the t-shirt. The t-shirt is compulsory and they have to wear that to every class with black leggings or black shorts. And then the rest is optional, okay? If you think uniform's not a major importance in your business model, if it's optional, then you just need to make sure you make people aware of your uniform and your merchandise as regularly as possible, and you're wearing it as an advert, all right? Because uniform and merchandise is a massive income stream in addition to your classes that you don't want to miss out on. Another tip is make sure that you have options in your uniform. Not everyone is going to feel comfortable in a crop top and shorts. So the more options you have and the more styles you offer, the more you're going to sell. And when it comes to selling it, if you have just opened and you've got a really small student base at the moment, you're going to make a much bigger profit margin if you just use a local company and sell it yourself. You can easily set up a uniform page on your website. Just use a Google form and do an order once a month. You don't have to keep loads of stock. Just do one big order, say on the 1st of every month. As long as everyone knows that's how you do it, then that's what they'll do. They'll make sure they get their orders in before the 1st of the month. And if you're slightly bigger or you just don't want the hassle, there are plenty of companies now that will do it for you and run you an online shop. So I always recommend Rock the Dragon. I swapped to them about a year and a half ago now. The setup is free, the shop is free, and you make a small commission. The parents deal with them directly, but I don't have the time to run it. I'm a big school, so even though the profit margins are a lot smaller, I like the freedom it gives me by just delegating that task to them. Yeah, so if you want to delegate, do that. I mean, it's a great option. And in fact, I was speaking to Amy at Rock the Dragon, and she said she's more than happy to talk through directly on a one-to-one basis any of you that are interested in what they offer. And plus, actually, I've talked her into coming onto the podcast soon to talk about uniform and merchandise within your brand. So you can hear more from her really, really soon. But if anyone would like Amy's details over at Rock the Dragon, just let me know and I'll put you in touch with her. Okay, so final question tonight. Best ways to introduce a new teacher. opening our second branch, very exciting. I'm thinking of maybe looking for a second teacher, although as I've built the school experience and identity around me, I'm a bit worried. Okay, well, I mean, that is totally understandable that you're feeling a bit apprehensive. It's important to know you're never going to find a teacher who is as passionate as you are about your school, but you can build and nurture your staff to care as much as you do. And yes, it's a big step, but it's an exciting one because it means that there is growth within your business. All right, so before you start looking, sit down and list what qualities are most important to you in a teacher. Essentially, you just need to build like an imaginary version of your ideal member of staff so you're clear on what you're looking for. Okay, you can then also check in with your expectations and make sure that they're realistic. And then once you've found a good fit based on that list, make it easy for them to stay. Give them classes back to back so it's more convenient than just the odd hour here and there. And look for staff, if you can, want a career in teaching, so they don't give up and leave you, with a couple of weeks notice or worse for a tour or a cruise for 6 months. If you can get people that want to create a career within the teaching industry, that's going to be a lot easier for you in the long run. You want your industry professionals, of course you do. If you can get them in to work with your students, that's a fantastic opportunity and they're so valuable. But get them in for workshops around their work, their extra work that they're doing and their professional work that they're doing. Trying to create a relationship that's full-time with someone that's still working actively in our industry, it's really difficult, guys. So try to find someone who wants to be a teacher. And ultimately, they don't have to be perfect either. What they do need to be is keen and mouldable and have a want to develop themselves. That is so important because, as teachers, that's something that we've got to be really active in, finding ways that we can continue our professional development. So decide what your ideal staff looks like first, and then from there you can start putting your feelers out. But you'll be really, really clear on what that character is and whether they're a good fit for your school if you've written it all out first and you've made those decisions beforehand. Good luck.